This is Support is Sexy, episode 438, with Emily Gaudreau, founder of howtoraiseamaverick.com. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here because it would not be the same without you. And listen, if you are a woman entrepreneur, even if you're in the early stages of your business, maybe you haven't even launched yet, maybe you have an idea, or maybe you're down the road and you're ready to pivot, to reinvent, to shift your business in a new direction. No matter what stage you're in, I want you to consider the Support is Sexy Mastermind. You need to be around a group of women who can support you, women who have been where you are, some who are going through the same thing, some you can teach by your experience. You want to be able to share in a space that is safe for you as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is creating something sexy, a business and life that you love. And that is what we have in the global community of the Support is Sexy Mastermind. If you haven't learned by now, I am very passionate about women getting the support they need because you do not have to do it alone. So right now we have a special offer for the Support is Sexy Mastermind. You might as well try it out. See if it works for you. Tons of content, monthly workshops with women entrepreneurs around the world, speaking to you about a specific topic, conversations with me, conversations with the women in your mastermind. I'm telling you, it is the place you want to be. So to find out more, to sign up, go to supportissexymastermind.com. It's that simple. Supportissexymastermind.com. Remember, having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. Supportissexymastermind.com. Now, I love our conversation today with Emily Gaudreau. And Emily and I don't have children, but I love conversations about children, about raising children, about the conversations that you need to have or can have, or just even opinions about having conversations with children around so much that affects their lives today. I mean, kids today are coming up with technology and so many other things that are in their lives that a lot of us, even just 10 years ago, did not have to consider. So on this episode, Emily and I talk about her movement, really, howtoraiseamaverick.com, which is about having empowering conversations with children around body safety and sex positivity. She also talks about the importance of having the quote unquote talk much earlier than a lot of us as parents or non-parents would even consider, and teaching your kids work ethic, grit, empathy, and curiosity. I have to tell you, it sparked a lot of intrigue and, again, great conversation with me thinking about this, asking some questions. Emily has some very strong and interesting and powerful ideas about ways, what she's learning in raising her child. And what she does say in this episode is she doesn't consider herself an expert, but she has some experiences, some things to share, and the way she has helped raise her stepchildren and the way she's raising her 5-year-old daughter, all of that plays into this mission that she has of really raising empowered children and encouraging parents to raise empowered children, and her bigger mission of ending sex trafficking. So we talk about that in this episode as well. I do want to let you know, because we do have a lot of conversation about sex and things like that, if you have any sensitive ears around you, you might want to put your earbuds in. Also, for anyone who has been through any kind of sexual violence, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. I want to let you know that there could be some conversation in here that may be triggering. So I just want to give you that warning just in case, so you're not surprised by anything while you're listening. So again, a great conversation. I'm sure it'll be thought-provoking for you, and I would love to hear your feedback. So let us know what you think. So now, without further ado, Emily Gaudreau. So Emily, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you. I'm super stoked to be here.
Excellent. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Oh, Honestly, I think I was kind of gifted dash cursed with a family that are chronic entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents started a food processing company. Back in the day, it was very much like Swanson's, where they would deliver chicken fried steak around the neighborhood, kind of frozen. And that's where I was raised. I was raised in the food industry. And then my mother actually she opened up a really high-end, I always have to bracket that, but a really high-end lingerie store. So I always laugh that we were in the meat industry on both ends. But but I actually never thought about having a job. It was always what business was I going to create from day one. That was just how I was raised. So, and I also, I kind of say I'm like genetically unemployable.
I love when people say that. It sounds so funny.
Yeah, I definitely like to work for myself. So I don't know. And I'm a creative. And I will say, I used to have a photo studio. My early part of my career was in photography,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get these really amazing assignments. I used to work with Rachel Rae, like Every Day with Rachel Rae.
Yeah.
And her husband, John Cusimano, has a recording label, or they do together. He's in a band called The Cringe. So I get put on assignment by Listen Records to go and photograph these awesome bands. And everyone was like, oh, you're so lucky. And I actually hated it. And I realized once I started doing photos with, like, say, business people of any kind, I do annual report photography and that kind of stuff, which sounds so boring, but business people are so fascinating to me.
So it wasn't photography that you started not to like, it was what you were shooting at the time.
Right. Everybody was like, oh, wow, you get to photograph these cool people. And I'm like, they're actually not that cool when they're not on stage.
Right.
And
that
then
happens. They're not performing. People think that's who they are all the time.
Yeah. And I would I have my agent and she'd have me set up doing these dinners. And I was like, can I pay you to get out of this? This is going to be like pulling teeth. Whereas the business people out front seems so boring. But a photo session with them was fascinating. They're just super, super creative people. So I'm on a rant right now, but the basic thing is entrepreneurship is such an art form. It's so beautiful and it's got so many different angles you can go at things. That's my love for entrepreneurship.
So did you have an idea when you were younger? Was your interest in photography at all, or what kind of business? Obviously not when you were very young, or maybe you did, but what kind of business you would go into, or did you think you'd go into the family business?
The family business, never. It never, it wasn't appealing to me at all. And I actually left the country right after I graduated from high school. I got a little bit of money from my grandpa's inheritance, which was literally like $1,500. And I spent it on a round the world ticket, and I landed in London and I stayed there for 7 years.
7 years. Wow.
It was like, I'm leaving and not coming back for a long time.
Where did you grow up?
Here in Colorado. I'm recording out of Denver, but here in Colorado, in the mountains, I call it Isolation Station.
Now, was it the idea of leaving right after high school? Was it that you wanted to get out of the town that you were in and just experience? Because a lot of high schoolers, well, maybe today they are, but years ago, I would think, weren't necessarily thinking, I'm going to leave my small town in Colorado and travel the world.
I have felt, I feel like always that life is just an amazing, amazing adventure. What is it? I'm going to forget her name. Anyways, I have quotes about this, and I can't recall them because I haven't had enough coffee. But Helen Keller, life is a thrilling adventure or nothing, or daring adventure or nothing. And that has kind of been my mantra throughout my whole life. And I like to just live a super juicy lifestyle. And that was just the juiciest I could get at that time in my life.
During that time of travel, that 7 years altogether.
Yeah, it felt like the craziest thing I could do is just pack up all my things and leave and go find adventure. And ended up going to art school in Manchester. And that's kind of how the photography thing panned out. And after, I ended up photographing in 35 different countries post 9/11, documenting kind of the aftermath of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up documenting things in Cambodia and went to Nepal when they were having their, I guess it was kind of a coup with the Nepalese government and the Maoists there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love to just throw myself into the deep end.
So then what brought you back to the States after that 7 years?
Well, I honestly, after doing documentary style photography, I realized that I kind of say that there's two types of photography. There's hunting and gathering. So the hunting is really just waiting for something to happen and being at the right place at the right time. And the images that sell are things that I don't want to be a part of. And especially in the documentary stuff, I was actually in Nairobi, and they said that, there were these riots in the streets and they're dragging Americans behind trucks. And so Associated Press, I'd say, this is where I'm at. What kind of images do you want? And they said, well, we need images of the riots. And I said, there's actually no riots going on.
Yeah, there's that.
There's nothing going on here. And they said, well, what do you have? Just send us a picture of a group of people. So there was a comedian, making fun of white people in the town square. And it was actually really funny. And I've got pictures of people laughing. So they got that and cropped it and published it as part of the riots. And
as though people were laughing at something horrible going on.
Yes. Well, they were jumping up with the fists in their air, yelling. And if you cropped it down, it looked like a mob,
Wow.
So
such an example of how the media can manipulate things. You just have to be aware of what's really going on in the world. But that's now I'm ranting.
Yeah, exactly. And even if there's an image to support it, unless you were on the ground, you have no idea what's going on. So that was a real wake-up call for me. And I was like, I'm out here doing really dangerous work in a really dangerous time, and my work is being manipulated to mislead people and cause fear. I was like, I'm out. So I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Wile E. Coyote was exiled to. It felt totally appropriate. And I opened up a photo studio there, and that's where I went more into commercial work, where I would set everybody up. You're going to wear this, you're going to do this, and then you're going to be smiling, whether you feel like smiling or not. And just creating. That was my gathering. I would gather everything together and create my scene. And I was like, I'm going to make pretty happy images, whether people are pretty and happy or not. So
and did that feel good for you? Did you feel like you were in the right space at that time?
Yeah. It was a good kind of detox from photographing war, I think. And that's how, like I said, I worked with Rachel Rae, and we did stuff for Autobahn magazine, and it was really good.
So at what point then did you transition to becoming the owner and founder of How to Raise a Maverick?
So after I closed my studio in New Mexico, I moved to Austin, Texas, and I met my husband. And to be honest, I never actually thought I would have kids. And I married my husband, and instantly I was a stepmom to 3 kids, which was like a deep end. It was another deep end. And actually, let me backtrack. When I was in New Mexico, my guide kids' mother died, and they were abandoned by their father. So they came and lived with me for a while, which was intense, being somebody under 30 years old and having teenagers in your house.
How many teenagers?
They were just 2. And they would kind of come and go from Colorado. And they had never been given the birds and bees talk. And there was a lot of complicated stuff going on in their life. So I had to turn into parent mode really quickly.
And you were in your 20s at this time.
Yes. It was very abstract.
How did you get through that period?
They were in I nannied them when they were younger. So I had a really, really good relationship with them to begin with. And I think I just treated them like we were roommates. But with roommates, there comes respect. You can't stay out late. You can't, just leave your stuff everywhere to be, you need to cook dinners occasionally. And I just approached it like a big sister, really.
Right.
And it was good for me too, because I realized at that point how you assume kids have had conversations with their parents about sexuality and their bodies and all the different things in relationships. And that was a realization. I loved their mother so much, but those talks weren't there like they should have been. So that was my job to do that with them. And they had reached a point there where they were like, it was beyond, they'd already experienced it in different ways. And then when I moved to Austin, Texas, I met my husband, and he had his, I call them bonus kids. And then that was another like, oh my gosh, moment when I realized that when you're a step parent, you have not, I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible, but you have very little to no impact on the kids because they have a mother and father.
Do you think that's at any age, no matter what age the kids are? Or is it more, you're thinking more when the kids are kind of older and have already been through certain stages?
Yeah, I think when they're older, but it's also, gosh, how old were they? I think the youngest was like 7 when I met them. But you realize we went through a whole series of pretty serious issues. The divorce situation with the kid's mom was really intense. And then the oldest, when he learned how to drive, he got into a car wreck and he is permanently disabled now.
No.
So we went through the traumatic brain injury, and he was in a vegetative state for a long time. So there's that. And then we had one of the kids smoke synthetic marijuana, which is something I preach out. If anybody is listening to this, right, you need to speak to your kids about synthetic marijuana ASAP. It is extremely dangerous, and he went into a psychotic episode for 6 months.
What is synthetic marijuana? Marijuana that is not real, made of other materials?
Yeah, so synthetic marijuana is sold, my face can talk, at head shops. So it's also called bath salt. And what it is it's seen or potpourri. They can sell it because it's not for human consumption. But it is a chemical compound that keeps getting changed because they try and make it illegal. And then it's imported. They just change the chemistry to it a little bit. So kids can get really high off of it, or they can totally lose their brain function.
Right, which happened to your stepson.
Yes, and it really is like playing Russian roulette, whether it's going to happen to you or not. And he went into a psychotic episode, and then he came out of it, and then he'd go back in. It was like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and some people never recover.
Was he smoking ongoing, or this was just from that one experience?
It was a one-time thing.
Wow, I never heard of that.
Yeah, and it's crazy because they can buy it. It's totally legal. But it's also, it's like smoking Tidy Bowl or something like that. You just don't know what the effects are. But people do it because if they get tested, they haven't been smoking marijuana. Because you're like, well, gosh, like why would you smoke synthetic marijuana? Because if they get tested, it
doesn't show up.
They're drug free. So, anyways, that's
those 3 things. And then the other child is a daughter, right?
Yes. Yeah. And she's in college right now. And then I have my daughter, Nola, who is in the house, and she's feisty little 5-year-old. So.
And then the other 2 children, your godchildren, are they there too? Or they're still?
Oh gosh. Yeah. They're actually, I'm going to brag a little bit. My godson has top security clearance in the Navy, and he speaks Russian. So in my mind, he's a Russian spy.
Wow.
And And then my goddaughter is actually at Johns Hopkins right now studying, going to medical school.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that's a total success story with those two for sure.
So now you're a mom of 4, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were at one point, though, well, really 6. And at one point, though, thought you weren't going to have children. But then you decide now that you're going to create sort of this whole business around raising powerful children.
Yeah. So this is really what happened is I had kind of I'll call it a come to Jesus with God. And I was told to do this. Mm-hmm. And it's been really interesting to me because I'm not a super religious person. I'm definitely spiritual, but once I was kind of thrown into this, there's some steps that happens when something like this happens to you, when you have a calling for a higher purpose, I guess, is you go through a really, really, really bad period in your life. Mm-hmm. And it's just like everything is falling out from underneath you. Nothing is good until you seek a higher help, I guess, and whatever that is for you. And for me, I actually said, whatever you want, I will make my life worth it. You got to help me here. I had some physical issues I was dealing with, and you got to be careful when you say stuff like that.
God is like, all right,
here we go, girl.
This is what I want you to do.
Yeah. So now, and the next kind of step that I would say when this type of thing happens to you, and I've interviewed hundreds of other people who have been quote unquote called, and there's a very specific pattern. They have like the beginning, the boot camp, where you transform into somebody you weren't before. So you see things from different perspectives because you've gone through hell and back, and you have just a high level of empathy and just what the knowledge that you've gained from that period of time, which most people call a crisis, is crucial in changing you into who you're going to be. And then after that period's over and you step into, looking for a higher help, then you start noticing things that really trigger you emotionally. And for me, human trafficking and sex abuse were the ones that I don't even want to be on this planet if that kind of stuff is happening. I just can't handle it. And stories start coming to you and you get more and more emotional. Some people get really, they get a lot of joy from doing something specific, like, they want to work with kids or whatever, or you get angry or you get sad. And then suddenly you realize that other people aren't as passionate about it as you are, and you can't understand. You're like, why are we not stopping everything that we're doing and saving these kids from child sex trafficking? Like, this is huge. And then you realize, oh, it's because I am being told to pursue this. This is my job. Mm. So How to Raise a Maverick is a gentle way of presenting the facts to stop sex abuse and human trafficking. And one of the major things is pornography and parents not talking to their kids properly about sex. And it's different now than it was. So, one of the questions you sent me was about, whether or not I'm an expert, a parenting expert or not. And the reason I say that I'm not is that every single time that kids, kind of fly the nest, different issues come up. And right now, from day one, we have to be talking to our kids about sex. From the day they're born, there has to be body safety methods going on from day one.
Now, how do parents have those? Well, first of all, going back a little bit, I'm so glad that you are answering the call to do something about sex trafficking, to end sex trafficking. Anytime someone's called to do something so great in tackling an issue that really does affect all of us. We think sometimes, oh, that's in other countries, even though it is huge here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But still, just the fact that you've done that. And I didn't realize that was the real push behind How to Raise a Maverick. So I'm so glad that you shared that. I knew it was about raising powerful, informed children, talking about sexuality and those things. But the fact that that mission is tied into it, I think is really powerful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have children, so I definitely don't know, but there might be parents out there too who are thinking, how do I start those conversations with my child, especially earlier on than some of us might think, like, oh, waiting until they're teenagers and we think they're about to be sexually active.
Right. So the very first thing is obviously to be aware. I mean, when you're pregnant, being aware and looking at these things and learning about how to have those conversations. And even as infants, there's a real infants can understand a lot more than what we think. But starting out with, I'm going to take your diaper off. I'm going to clean you. And kind of as soon as you can, there's kind of permissions to do these things. And then also, especially with the diaper changing, as soon as they're old enough to have them actually stand up to where they're not laying down and it happening to them, that they're actually part of that. I know that sounds really strange. But one of the biggest things, the number one thing you can do to prevent sex abuse in your family is to stay married.
Stay married?
To stay married. Your child is 3 times less likely to be sexually abused as if they are with their biological parents, both living in a home. So that's one of the things you can do is get a babysitter that you trust and get the nanny cams. Just do it. And go out on a date with your spouse.
Now,
that's my first advice.
Now, one of the, a few things there. One of the things people might be thinking, women listening especially, might be thinking, if they're a single mom or they are divorced, is it all over for them? I mean, you mentioned stay married, but if you are in an unhealthy relationship, I would think that would be as, or could be as damaging to a child as just having the parents there just so they can stay married.
Yes, I agree 100%. One of the things, when they are unable to speak, you have to be their protector 100%. And anybody that takes care of your child has to be vetted. And it's not necessarily, I mean, obviously background checks or whatever. Those are kind of skimming the surface. But when somebody takes care of their child, they need to sit them down and say, these are our body safety rules. You know, nobody is allowed to touch them like this. Nobody's allowed to touch their private parts. They know this. You know, you kind of go through, we are aware of this. We're watching. We're paying attention. We're educated about it. Because if there is a predator, they are looking for the easiest prey, is I guess the best way to say it. Mm-hmm. And they look for parents who are checked out, or they're not there, or single mothers are targeted very specifically by men who want to have access to their kids. So if you are a single mom, there's some things that you can watch out for. One of the things is lap sitting. So if the man or whoever is trying to get the kids, like, oh, come and sit on my lap, and the kids, and he's forceful, he's disrespecting boundaries. There's also, if he opens up the door while they're going to the bathroom, kind of continuously, or if they're, anytime there's boundaries set and they continuously push it, or if they get angry when the topic of sex abuse prevention is brought up, they get really upset about it, there's usually something going on there.
How do you suggest that people, because one of the things, it might seem like a small thing, but I remember mentioning it to a friend and she thought, I never thought of that. You know how when children are like, maybe not babies, they can't speak as you said or say no, but I guess toddler age. And if someone says, oh, give so-and-so a kiss, give her a kiss, or even a hug or something, and you can tell the child feels for whatever reason, or they might not feel like it. It might not be that they're afraid of that kind of thing. And I remember telling a friend, maybe don't force them to give me, I think it was me even. I was like, don't force them to give me a hug. Oh, it's fine. You want to do a high five or something else that felt better for them. Or if they just said no, it was like, it's okay. We'll talk later. So I just wonder about, we don't think about that. We think kids is wave hello, say goodbye, say goodnight, give them a kiss. We're always ordering these interactions. What do you think about that? And how can we teach young children that it's okay to not want to give Auntie so-and-so a kiss?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, because forcing a child, it's just like if I were to tell you, go and give this person a kiss. I will do that if I want to. And I would have initiated that if I wanted to do that. So it's, in some ways, you need to look at them as adults in that regard. How would you feel if you were forced to give somebody a kiss or a hug when it made you feel weird in your stomach? So always giving them an out. Grandparents are the worst about this. Oh my gosh. The older generation doesn't see this stuff at all. It's really, really hard for them. So the best thing you can do, because it's usually with your family, is to let them know what's going on. And it is wicked hard. I can talk to strangers all day about body safety, and my daughter knows this and my kids know that. When it comes to my family, it's hard.
What are some of the things that you come up against with your family, for people listening who might be interested in this but think, oh, my mother will never go for that, or my, being the child's grandmother or whoever? What is one thing that you've come up against, and how have you just worked around it?
My situation is, because this is what I do 40 hours a week, is I listen to victims and survivors and perpetrators, crafting and making sure I can figure out what we can do to prevent that from happening. So in my family, I'm just so super focused on it that I'm ridiculous. And that's kind of
know it's a mission for you.
Yeah. And so they're like, Emily, you're taking it too far. Da, 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 da. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more important than your child. And 95% of sex abuse happens with people you know. So that's either in your family or within your church, your sports group, or potentially somebody you're paying to take care of your child. So a lot of times we're so afraid of the boogeyman coming and getting our kids and snatching them. You really don't need to be worrying about that as much as you need to be having conversations in your family. Like, I'm aware this is how we do things. And my child has the verbal ability to tell me anatomically correct words for their body, and they're going to tell me if anybody has touched them inappropriately.
Right. It really is making sure, letting your family know, of course, as you said, but making sure that your child feels empowered to say no in the moment, and to know when they feel uncomfortable, and to tell mommy or daddy when something happens. I think that's probably one of the biggest things too, right? Even if it feels uncomfortable and your daughter's afraid to tell you because they've been threatened or they have shame, moving through that as well.
Well, the biggest thing I can say is talk to your kids about this almost every day. And I don't mean having these deep conversations, but use anatomically correct words every time they're taking a bath. You tell them, I don't know if I am allowed how much I'm allowed to talk. Okay.
Yes.
I tell my daughter, wash your vulva and your rectum. And I'm very specific about her body parts. The vulva is different than the vagina. So she knows all of her body parts. And if anybody touches her, there's a difference between her getting bumped on the butt or somebody touching her rectum, if that makes any sense. And those are everyday words in our house. And I talk about body safety. If she's going to camp or she's going over to grandma's house and other kids are there, she knows about pornography and what to do if she sees pornography. It's very, these are just regular subjects in our house.
By making them part of the everyday conversation.
Yeah, like we don't run out into the street. There's all kinds of safety things. I mean, how many times you tell kids not to put stuff in their mouth, you'll choke on that, whatever. You'll pick up things off the street and put it in your mouth. I'm constantly telling her those things as well as body safety things.
And she's 5 or 6 now?
She's 5.
She's 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I saw on your website, that howtoraiseamaverick.com, for everyone listening, you mentioned that in addition to teaching children work ethic and grit, it's also important to include empathy. So I was curious, why was empathy one of the things that you felt was necessary to put in there? Is that something that's lost on our children today?
Yeah. So the 4 pillars of work ethic, grit, empathy, and then I've recently added curiosity is if you don't have work ethic, then you have the ability to be trapped in a situation where you're dependent on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times where kids end up, or, I moved out when I was 16, so I've kind of experienced some of this stuff, but you are victim, you can fall prey to leaning on somebody else because you're not trained to do the work to work your way out. Then grit is having the ability to be in a situation and say, wait a second, this isn't right. This totally goes against my my moral core, and I'm not going to participate. I don't care if there's this huge mob out here saying that this is the right thing to do. I'm going to allow myself social rejection because I know and I have the grit to withstand that, to choose not to participate.
Mm-hmm.
And then empathy is being able to see something from somebody else's perspective and say, this isn't right. This is we shouldn't be doing this. Watching pornography and seeing women beat and violated and looking at it and go, there's no way they're enjoying that.
And younger children are watching much younger, or have exposure to it now. They say much younger than ever. I think 11 or 12 kids are being exposed to it.
It's almost a guarantee by 11 or 12 that somebody has shown them pornography.
Mm-hmm.
Kids as young as 5 are being exposed to it.
Mm.
So the empathy part is, again, a lot of the bullying online. And I'm actually working towards creating courses about, creating digital citizenship and digital empathy, that behind all of these images are people. Behind all of these words, there's people behind all of this, and people are consuming this stuff. There's a real gap in the cyber world versus the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the major things that I'm doing my darndest to try and fix.
Right. And then curiosity.
Yeah. And curiosity, I've added that one on because I think that you could go through your life marching. You could have your work ethic, your grit, and your empathy, but unless you're curious enough to go, this is interesting. Why are we doing it this way? If you look at the history of the wars that have gone on, and a lot of the civilians they're just trying to survive, really, without the curiosity to say, this is interesting. Why is this going on? How come this is happening over there, or whatever, to dig in deeper, to discover the things that are kind of happening underground.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say are the 3 traits of maverick parents? Those are the things that we teach the children, but what are the traits of maverick parents?
The traits of the maverick parents, I think the number one thing is that they step outside of themselves or into kind of an uncomfortable area and have discussions about untalked about issues, pornography, the sex positive discussions, the trafficking and the bullying and the online stuff. They have to step up and be knowledgeable and seek out the knowledge to be able to discuss these things with our kids. If you notice, we've got the anti-gun protests going on with the younger kids, and that's their thing, is they're saying the adults don't even know how to send text messages. I had to hook up your Wi-Fi. I had to do all these things for you. My parents aren't smart enough to know these things. That is how that generation is seeing their parents right now. The other thing is there is a real adultist agenda that's speaking out against the millennials. The millennials don't have any work ethic. They're bad people.
So not true.
It's so not true. And you have to not discriminate against a whole generation, because it will come back and it's going to come back and bite us. And we need to stop discriminating against different generations above and below us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my...
That's very true. I always say that I mean, like you said, that's such a great point. All generations right now, everyone's talking about millennials. And I think the word is getting out, for lack of a better phrase, about, no, actually this generation isn't just lazy or entitled or that. I think they are demanding certain things within whether it's their jobs or their community or what they want the world to be like. But then on the other side of that is there's Generation X, and then what is it? Baby boomers is before generation. I can't remember.
Yep.
But then also people discriminate against that age. And I have a friend who's a VP. I always say she's CEO of AARP. She's not yet, but she's a VP at AARP.
Yep.
And she, right, exactly. But she has educated me so much about that generation and how it's not necessarily about age. It's more about stage, 60, 70, et cetera. It doesn't look like what it looked like, or it might even look like it, but they're not doing the same things as people thought they were going to be doing at that age before. They're like second win or third win, whatever it is. We're traveling, we're doing this, we're doing that. So to your point, I think all generations, we kind of have to look at what's important to that generation and not think, oh, they're this age, so this is what that means. And to your about everything you're doing, that includes the little babies. They're smarter than we all think and more perceptive, I think, than we all think.
Yeah. And the other really interesting thing that's going on right now is the millennials, or, really the next generation, which I think is Generation Z coming up, is they are going to be competing with the baby boomers for entry-level jobs, because the baby boomers, I'm speaking, as I was saying, don't make sweeping generalizations. Here I go. But the baby boomers don't have enough money to retire, so
they're living longer.
Yeah, and they compete for the same entry level jobs. So if you go to Target or Walmart or whatever, you'll notice that there's a lot more gray hair going on the cashiers instead of the young kids.
You're so right.
So that's kind of an interesting dynamic there. The baby boomers are talking smack about the younger generation, and they're fighting for the same positions. And the younger generation go through university. They have these huge debts,
right?
And they're worth very little to nothing unless it's a really specific, if you're a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. But the liberal arts stuff it's just really, really expensive, and it doesn't really give you that much of an edge. So
the education piece is something I'm very interested in, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs have been both looking at that and launching different kinds. I'm gonna have to bring someone on to talk about that. Yeah. But yeah, just these sort of I guess, for lack of a better word, alternative universities or other kinds of schools or programs, or people are just looking at what else can exist outside of just what you said, taking on this tremendous amount of debt and then not really knowing what to do with the degree that you have. So I think we're kind of moving back towards a very focused kind of almost vocational, but not really, but looking at other kinds of,
I think that there's going to be an overhaul very soon.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, I went to university in the UK, but I went to art school. So if you go through school in the UK, you get to your A levels, which is like graduating from high school. It is like getting your bachelor's degree. The knowledge that they have out of the gate is equivalent to a bachelor's degree in the United States. So when you go into university, one of my friends was doing had a double degree in math. All he did was math.
Very focused.
I mean, they didn't do anything else but math, which sounds like the seventh layer of hell to me. And I had my art degree, and all we did was create art and hear lectures about art, and that was it. We didn't do anything else. It was heaven. It was like it was it was so amazing.
So now for your company, How to Raise a Maverick, and everyone, again, it's howtoraiseamaverick.com. What is the primary driver as far as, is it set up as a business? Is it more, do you see it more as a nonprofit, or what is the driver for you with how you're keeping the business going?
It's really interesting that you asked this, because I have a coach that I'm working with, and she's specifically for nonprofits. And it's nonprofit is not my area of expertise. I'm definitely a for-profit mindset. So I have a donation page set up on the website, and I think I might take it more nonprofit, but it's actually a lot of work to do the nonprofit sector. So I may take it there someday, but it's actually kind of expensive to do that. And the bookkeeping, which I hate, gets really complicated. So, I mean, I do see it. It's a charitable for-profit business, really. And I don't know, that may change someday, but for right now, it's a charitable for-profit business.
I just had a conversation a couple of episodes ago. Time-wise, I have no idea how long ago I speak to people. It might have been yesterday, it could have been 3 weeks ago, but I just know episodes. Rahama Wright, who's the founder of Elayne, a shea butter company, and she talked about, did you hear that one? I have to send you
I know the product. Yeah.
Okay. I'll send you a link to that one, just because she spoke about how in starting her company, I guess it may have been 10 years ago or so now, but she made the shift a few years ago from nonprofit to for-profit. And she just talks about how that changed. It wonders for her business, but how she still has a social good, social justice component to her business, which is all about empowering women who create the shea butter in West Africa. So it sounds very interesting based on what you just talked about. But it could be interesting fodder just to listen to hear how she did that and what her experience was.
I have iTunes up right now, and it was episode 431.
Thank you, everyone. Yay, Emily Greenberg. I was going to look that up. Okay, excellent. Episode 400.
I got it. I am a huge believer in making copious amounts of money to do amazing things in the world.
Right.
And I really believe that if you are out to just make money for yourself, you will fail.
Right.
And money is energy, and if you don't let it flow in a good way, you're like a blocked artery, and the world is, the universe is not going to continue to send prosperity and success your way if it feels like it's just a roadblock. So I no matter how you make your money, make a ton of money and do amazing stuff with it. It's really hard to have a positive effect on the world when you're poor.
That's right. And it's not impossible, but like you said, it's really hard. It's easier to do it when you have the money to put behind the initiatives and things that you want to do.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun.
It's a lot more fun.
And a lot of, even my godkids went through a period of time, especially my goddaughter, where she was like, money's evil. I don't know where this comes from, because you can do amazing things with money. There's some verses in the Bible that kind of back that up, but there's also King Solomon was I think he might still be one of the wealthiest person to have ever lived, was loved by God. And it's to say that, you're not going to get to heaven, all that stuff because you money. I'm calling BS.
Right, exactly. It's so funny. I'm going to go on a huge tangent. The other day at Starbucks, a quick one. Starbucks, this guy that we always see each other there, going there, work, etc. Anyway, so I was leaving. He was outside and I said, "Oh, good to see you." We chatted a little bit. Had never met before. He told me his name. Anyway, one thing he said was, "Oh, I saw you." First of all, this is creepy. He's like, "I looked over your shoulder one day and saw you were working on stuff about women or something. What are you, the writer?" Anyway, I said, "Oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur and I focus on doing things for women." And he had told me already that he was studying to be a teacher or a teacher's assistant or associate or something. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur." And I don't even think he heard what I mentioned about women. He just heard entrepreneur. And he said, "Oh, so you want to make a lot of money?" And I said, "Yeah." I definitely want to make a lot of money. And he's like, oh, money is important to you. I said, absolutely, because I have a lot of things I want to do. I swear this literally just happened a few days ago. That I do remember. So it's so interesting to hear you. To me, you're backing up what I say. Yes, I do want to, and not having shame around saying, oh, I want it. I said, do you want to make a lot of money? It's like, no, just enough. And I said, oh, okay. All right. Well, nice to see you. Because that was pretty much it. But,
yeah.
It just was like, nice to meet you next time. And nothing, everybody, first of all, not judging. Everyone has their thing. But I think to your point, it's not even just okay. It's great to say you want to make a lot of money if that's what you want, and to know that you can do a lot of things with that money. So that was just a recent example. And it's just so interesting to have it come back to me again and hearing it from you.
Yeah, I actually started a Facebook group. It's pretty small right now, but it's called Mavericks and Benches. And it's about people, or it's just people who are in the business of doing good. And it's basically, I wanted to create a safe space for people to say, how can I make money off of my product or whatever that's helping the world and not feel scrutiny?
Right.
Because it's like, because you have a nonprofit or whatever, it's like people expect you to not make money for yourself. And it's you're just not effective. If you don't have enough money to take care of yourself, you're just not going to get out there. And I'm not saying living ludicrously, but you've got to make money. I'm just a huge proponent of that. And even in our house, even the way we talk about work, Daddy gets to go to work. I get to go to work. Work is a privilege. And we celebrate money. We talk about the good things that we're going to do about it. I try and make money a really positive source of energy in our house as much as possible.
I was going to ask, one of my questions, what are you teaching your daughter about, if anything, about entrepreneurship, money, those kind of things? So that's awesome that you're having those conversations too. Because a lot of us as women, not everyone, but just because of society, we have shame about money, or we don't want to talk about money, or we want to make money, but don't want anyone to know we want to make money. It's all these things that we're all dealing with. And it's tough, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I would say a couple of things that I do with my daughter is anytime I meet an entrepreneur, I introduce my daughter and we talk about the owner and the cool things that she did. And this is all hers. And this is how she makes money for her family. And I talk about not working, but owning businesses. So it's not like where this person works here, this person owns this. So just the vocabulary around getting to work and owning, they own this.
Right.
Instead of they work there.
Right. And I would imagine, just coming from your family, that's been a part of your conversations for a long time.
Yeah. I think that's probably where I get it.
What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Oh, gosh. It was interesting because when I thought about, coming on your show and Support is Sexy and about women helping women. And to be honest, it hasn't been only until I started How to Raise a Maverick have I found support with women. And it really is a kind of a breakthrough for me. But I would say before starting How to Raise Maverick, I was super competitive. And I would say that was a huge detriment to my success. I didn't collaborate. I didn't lean on. I didn't network with other women like I should have. It was more competitive. And I don't know if that was an age thing, maybe. Or lack of wisdom. But as I've gotten older, all the women I connect with are just powerhouses. And I get them, I have my podcast too, and they get on there and they're like, how can I help you? I'm like, whoa, you want to help me? Oh my gosh.
Right.
And it does help when you have a good cause. But yeah, that's been a real eye-opener for me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's interesting. That's really what Support is Sexy is all about. I always say reminding women having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I think
Yeah.
because a lot of us, as we talked about the money piece where we're taught to have shame or be quiet about it, so to speak. On the other side, I think like you, am an ambitious woman and have all these dreams and goals. And for a long time thought I'm making it happen, doing it by myself. And I think maybe for me, it was when I was younger too. But I think also it's just a different kind of awareness becomes possible later on, hopefully, if you're open to it. But that sort of shift of not having support or asking for support or being able to accept support really affected me in such negative ways in parts of my life that I wasn't even aware of. So now trying to share that message with women, just as you, just getting to the point of looking at collaboration and then realizing how many people and women especially really do want to help you. Not everyone, but
Yeah.
probably more than you think, right? So I'm so glad that that has happened for you. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's also getting to a point where you're no longer insecure
Mm-hmm.
and you know that people can work in the same industry as you. And in the past, and I mean, this is a good example is there's in my neighborhood, there's two bookstores and one of the bookstores has bullied the other one and they're both women owners to the point where the other one is moving to a different part of the city.
Mm.
And it's that kind of business is just such a shame because there's so many ways they could have done that. I love both of the bookstores. I go to both of them. One's a children's bookstore, one sells wine. You know, I'm not going to drink wine at the children's bookstore, but having cross referencing,
Mm-hmm.
everybody is really good at one thing. And having the ability to say, you know what, this is not my area of expertise. You're, in your own mind, you are not my ideal client, but this person is. This person is really good at dealing with this, and you are their perfect client. And it like I said, it'll flow. You
That's
just got to
right.
let energy flow.
That's right. And ambition doesn't have to look like isolation or competition. It can be
Yeah.
collaboration. Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it. Support is sexy, Emily.
Woo! It is sexy.
So, in closing, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Gosh, you know, I think it would be God, my God kid's mother, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
She was friends with my parents growing up, so she was around. She was like a second mother to me. But I remember trying to do something, and I was like, I don't think I can do it. And she was like, Emily, have you ever not been able to do something? And it was the right thing to say. You know, right now I'm like, well, yeah, that now I've definitely tried things and not been great at it. But in that moment, it was like, oh, she made me feel invincible in it for better, for worse. And yeah, she just encouraged me to travel and just go for it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting, you know, how you say, you know, you don't have kids. And I know a lot of the people listening right now don't have kids, but be the person for a child that you needed to be there in your past, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense. That point in your life where you needed somebody, be that somebody. And words and encouragement from somebody who isn't a parent or a relative carries so much more weight. You know, if you just, you know what, you're really good at this. I've been watching you. You're really a good person. You've really got something special. Just straight out, you know, whoever you see, just pour wisdom into kids whenever you can.
Wow, that made my eyes water. Thinking
Oh,
about, honestly, thinking about all the kids that I know, and I have been thinking a lot about just children. Am I going to have them? Am I going to not? I froze my eggs years ago. That's a whole other tangent. We could talk about that later. But just that what you just said so beautifully of thinking about being to children in your life what you needed at that age or that stage or just during your childhood. I could absolutely do that.
right? And it
That's
really
beautiful.
takes one line.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And I have seen actually now that I think about some of the girls and the boys too, but I have a lot of girls in my life, daughters of friends, and saying things to them. You know, I'm that person anyway, but just now that I'm thinking about reaction when I say something like, oh, you're great at that, or just encouraging them or them wanting to talk about things they might not talk about to their mom, not conversations I think should be
Yes.
reserved for just simple little things, you know. Interesting.
Yeah,
Emily,
and
that's good.
especially because, you have this platform, even inviting them to come in and work with you. When my daughter, my goddaughter, she came early on and she lived with me for a little while and she worked in the studio. And to be honest, I don't remember a lot of it, but that is a very important period of time for her. And
Mm-hmm.
she refers back to it a lot when we worked together, when we were working. And to actually engage them in what the real world looks like this is, outside of the college and the theory and the philosophy, this is real work, is
Mm-hmm.
so important. And parents, it's something really difficult to have the kids show any interest in it. But someone like you, like gorgeous, successful woman, and you bring them into your circle for a day, it would blow their mind.
Interesting. Yes, I commit. That's awesome. 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 Thank you so much. That's great. Now tell us the ways that we can support you. We want to show up for you. So tell everyone again the website, which I'll have links to, social media, or anything you want us to know about.
Yeah, so howtoraiseamaverick.com and Facebook, my private Facebook group, which has just started, is called Emily G apostrophe S, Raising Mavericks. I had to change it from Emily Gaudreau because my last name is crazy long.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could find it. So it's just Emily G's Raising Mavericks on Facebook. And I have a How to Raise a Maverick page for Facebook, but that really is just my podcasts that come out. And again, I'm on iTunes and Stitcher and
Your podcast is called How to Raise a Maverick.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And those are just little tidbits. Once a week, I was doing daily for a while on, just little things that keep you motivated and focused on raising kids that have work ethic, grit, and empathy in a modern world.
Emily, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. It was truly enlightening. I hope I'm sure everyone out there got something out of it. But thank you too for being open about your story, your journey, and then as I mentioned earlier, what your mission really is. I definitely support you.
Thank you. I wanted to add one more thing is sure. If anybody is having questions about how to talk to their kids about body safety, or they don't really know where to start, and this is kind of a little bit of a specialty niche, but also people who were abused as kids often have a really, really hard time having these discussions. They don't know if they have the skills to do it the right way. So oftentimes it doesn't get talked about and the abuse continues. So if you are one of those people, or if you just really want some support on like how to do this, I am launching a free range parents guide to body safety. And most of the courses or the lessons are ones that can be taught outside. And free range parenting is really giving your kid as much freedom as humanly possible. So it's not isolating them as much as we'd love to get our kids and like lock them up in the house to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. This is about letting them ride their bikes in the neighborhood, go to the store, be independent, but know how to take care of themselves and be safe.
So how can people find out more about your course?
Yeah, so that's all going to be on howtoraiseamaverick.com. It'll just be on that front page.
Okay, excellent. Emily, Thank you so much. This is awesome. As I said, great conversation, great information. Before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Oh gosh. I would say the number one thing that I've learned, especially with entrepreneurship, is have a period of time or a space where you do something that's not for money. And I speak to that from my photography career. Once I decided I wasn't going to be a photographer anymore, I started creating my best work. And if I could turn back the clock, I would have been doing my best work from the very beginning, but I was so focused on paying the bills that I was handicapped. So just give yourself a space where it's not judged. Nobody looks at it and you're not trying to sell it in any way, and just create authentically and let that influence your work that you are using to make money.
Excellent. Emily Gaudreau, thank you. Hold on just a moment.
Thank you so much.
Hold on. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Emily. To find out more about her, to find out about how to raise a maverick, make sure you go to supportissexypodcast.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just type in Emily, Emily. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the links and the resources and the ways to get in touch with her. Supportissexypodcast.com and just search Emily. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you know how much I appreciate you. As I always say, it would not be the same without you. So make sure you come back tomorrow for another new episode. Again, I really appreciate you being here. Now, until we chat again, you know what to do. Always remember that you deserve support. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.